Imagine reliving the same week thousands of times while the universe collapses around you. That's essentially the concept of my mind-bending short film, The Mecca Project, in which a physics student realizes that he's trapped in a time loop, and each time it resets, his mind forgets. The thing that makes this short so special to me is that I was able to break reality with just me, one crew, one character, one location, and I'm gonna show you how I wrote it. So the idea started in 2021 during lockdown when I was all alone for a majority of the time, and I wanted to challenge myself to create something where I could do it myself, and I was the central character and it would still be exciting and original and thought-provoking. My favorite types of films are the ones where you can really think about it and it sparks interest in the mind and it sparks a curiosity. So that's what I wanted to aim for here. So that's where I was for the origin of the concept, but equally important is what I was absorbing at the time, and I was reading a ton of physics books. I don't know why. The book that was probably most influential on this story was The Order of Time by Carlo Rovelli. The physics that was in it was fascinating, and it's all about time and loop quantum gravity, which is an alternative to string theory, which is a way of explaining how the universe works. All of that was super influential on this story. Then I had books like Until the End of Time by Greene, which was so wonderfully written and really got into the philosophy behind all of the science of entropy and beginnings and ends, and that was core to the short film because I wanted it at its core to be about philosophy, which brought in another inspiration, which was the book What is Real by Becker, which really goes into the differences between the Copenhagen interpretation, which essentially posits there's no point in exploring the deeper questions of reality and meaning, which is a belief that was held by a famous physicist named Niels Bohr and is contrary to the belief of someone like an Albert Einstein, and the two of them famously had these debates. It's possible that the majority of the physics community as a whole would have agreed more with Bohr and said that he won that debate. Whatever you interpret the outcome of that debate to be, the fact is that the Copenhagen interpretation and people's sort of more pragmatic, less philosophical view of physics and the world is really what took over for and probably is still the prominent way of thinking in the community. So these books and these inspirations and knowledge that I gained about physics and philosophy sort of morphed together into this idea of the Mecca Project. And I don't want to spoil the Mecca Project in this video. I would love if you went to see it because there's a great twist at the end and you fully understand the whole nature of this reality. But that's the story I wanted to tell. Essentially was a mystery. At its core, it's a mystery about the nature of reality and what it means. And at the same time, I wanted to create something new. I wanted to deconstruct this whole time loop genre. We've all seen this time loop concept be used a million times over. Groundhog Day, Happy Death Day. You have TV episodes that are dedicated to it. Even if the show isn't a sci-fi show, sometimes you'll get a weird time loop episode where the person is repeating the same day over and over again. We've all seen it a million times. But I wanted to do something different and deconstruct the time loop genre, if you will. One was, we're not actually going to see the day or week or however long it is reset like we do in all these other stories, which brings us to two. Instead, the character is going to learn that he's in a time loop and it's going to be a race against time before it actually resets. That way we get this mystery and we get the race against time, and both together is just a perfect marriage for suspense. And three, we're actually going to build a mystery around the reason for this time loop. It's not just going to be simply an exemption of bad things that you've done and you have to learn a lesson in order to break this loop. No, we're going to have to actually create a real reason scientifically and explore it using the things that I've learned. So in that regard, it's actually a pretty meta story because I'm learning all these things and the character who I play is learning all of these things and trying to understand the nature of the world, and that's really all that we can do as humans. So on a base philosophical human nature level, that's what it's trying to explore. So I knew, given all this information, that I wanted to create something that was deeply layered. I wanted to explore time and existentialism and science fiction and combine all these things. But then the question lies, how do you do this in one room with one character? I can honestly say proudly that there's really not another film like this. I really tried to research other stories that were like this and I just couldn't find any. So if you know any stories like this or films like this where it's just one character trying to figure out the nature of reality using physics, please comment down below and let me know because I would love to see that. My inspirations had to be more abstract or parts of things like Interstellar, the way they're able to use science to break down relativity and space travel and time dilation and things like that. What's interesting is that this lack of inspiration and lack of direction for the story and how I could actually accomplish this actually forced me to take some time away from from it. Which brings me to over 2 years ago now. Wow, I can't believe it's been that long. Oppenheimer released, and if you've been watching thus far, then you might see where I'm getting at with this, because the first 30 minutes or so of Oppenheimer is quite literally the film that I've always wanted to make. The physics university setting, the students, and just talking about these crazy scientific terms and concepts. That's the film that I've always wanted to see, and that's the film that I wanted to make with the Mecca Project. That really gave me the inspiration to just do it. And in 2023, I finished what I believe is the 9th draft of the Mecca Project, and I whipped it up into shape and I just filmed it. But let's actually get into the nuts and bolts of how I wrote this. For me, the most important part was the ending, was nailing this massive twist at the end. So to do that, well, I had to know exactly what was going on. I had to know the answer. And that's the thing with any mystery. If you're writing like a murder mystery, you have to kind of know who the murderer is. So I had to figure out the ending before anything else. And again, I don't want to spoil the ending because I think it's amazing and you should just check it out for yourself. From there, it was all about implementing the research I had done. And for me, it wasn't research, really. It was just what I wanted to read. I was just interested in this physics stuff and time and entropy and those sorts of concepts. So it didn't feel like research. It didn't feel like I was going out of my way to find things to insert into the script. No, it was things that I already wanted to insert in the script, like loop quantum gravity versus string theory, the Copenhagen interpretation of quantum physics versus this more faith-based God doesn't throw dice, which is an Einstein quote. And of course I knew what kind of tone I wanted. I wanted this sort of dark, scholarly mixture, like a dark academia playlist, but visualized. And I knew the aspect ratio I wanted. I wanted a box because he's literally confined into this small area and he's confined into this ever-shrinking reality. And then there was the mathematics of it all, which, yeah, when you're writing a script, you don't think like, oh yeah, I'm about to do math now. But I had to do math. I had to figure out if, how long is one loop? In this case, it was 10 days. And so I figured out, well, if the concept is each loop resets and you lose a minute, how long will it take for it to get to 0 minutes? And that's, it was about 14,400 loops. And then questions emerged like, well, will it actually get to 0 minutes or 0 seconds, or like will the unit of time be shorter and shorter and shorter, where the main character is looping over and over again in fractions of a second? And these types of questions actually make it into the script because it's like, yeah, these are fascinating questions that are just coming naturally. And I think that that's the most pure form of writing. You're sparking your own curiosity. You just can't get these types of ideas across without dialogue. You need dialogue, but then who do I talk to if I'm the only character? And that was where the AI came in, and I actually play the AI, I voice it. So coming up with this story between 2021 and 2023, AI was like just getting started, your chat GPTs and things like that. So and even today, even dropping it this year, it was pretty topical coming up with this AI companion that I could talk to. Yeah, that was it. That was the way to do it, to get across these ideas. Not only that, but introducing the catalyst of the entire thing, which is the camera. The whole reason that my character is able to know that he's in a time loop in the first place is because he finds this camera that has seemingly unlimited memory of all of the different loops and videos of himself, logs in which he's telling how he's trying to figure things out and the math that he's using and the different concepts and the struggles that he's going through. So it's both helping to deliver to the audience more information, but it's also increasing the severity of the situation. And then finally, to return back to the whole philosophy of it all, it was really important that I used that to challenge my character, because my character begins very much in the Copenhagen camp, a very mathematical, calculated, cold sort of person who looks at the world in this frame, and he's forced throughout the story to expand his mind and to start thinking about things in less of a mathematical way and start to ask why, which really, to me, it speaks to all of us as just humans who try to explore that question for ourselves. So the major goals with those first couple of drafts were sharpening the themes and the core questions of the story, and it was locking down the science and figuring out what works, what is too much, what is just enough to show that this character is smart and capable without bogging down the audience with too much math and science talk that just makes you go all fuzzy. Who knows? I don't know if I succeeded at that or what. But coming back to 2023, it wasn't until then when I did the final rewrites and I finally hit the mark on the emotion and the stakes, and there was actually about an extra 10, I want to say 10 pages of stuff in there that I cut that I didn't end up shooting because either it was impractical or it didn't add anything. With any story, you have to be comfortable with cutting things and being objective and asking yourself if this works or if it's necessary, because you only really want the stuff that is necessary, the stuff that really works and really helps your story. As far as the writing goes, I think the writing was as close to as perfect as I could have gotten it during the draft, and it just came to during the actual shooting, speaking it out loud and performing it and seeing what worked, and if things didn't feel natural, then I would just change them on the spot. So that seems like the perfect segue into the next video, which will actually detail how I did this, how I shot this short film all by myself. So stay tuned for that. You won't want to miss it. And if you haven't already, please check out my short film, The Mecca Project. I will leave the link in the description or put it up here somewhere. Please consider subscribing or like the video, comment, whatever you want to do. It helps. And my call to action for you is to just write it. Just write the story that you've always wanted to write. If you don't have friends to film, just do it yourself. Do what I did. Write a story for you. You don't even have to be a great actor. You can sit in front of the camera for hours and try it over and over and over again until you get something that works. That's it. That's all I did was just keep trying. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be what you want. Find what you're passionate about. Write what you're passionate about. Write something that you can do yourself and just do it.